Dalen stared at Lucia without blinking. Lucia stood on her tiptoes and pulled his face down to hers. Both of them were cold and soaked, but they slowly started to heat up. Dalen pushed her away, narrowed his eyes, and asked, "Do you know what you're doing?" "Do you not like it?" Lucia asked, and then said a little gloomily, "I was trying to comfort you, but I don't want to make you angry. I know you must be angry about what happened yesterday, so I ran over here." She didn't ask Dalen why he let Axel out. It was probably best not to ask about anything at all. Dalen looked at Lucia's eyes, and his cold heart softened. "You need to go back and take a warm bath," he said. After that, he pulled Lucia over and got into the car waiting in the garage. Once they were in the car, Dalen wrapped Lucia in his arms and warmed her with his body heat to prevent her from catching cold, and he dried her hair with a towel. "It was stupid of you to stay out in that storm," Dalen chided. "Weren't you freezing?" Lucia raised her head and looked at him. "Dalen, are you worried about me?" Dalen was silent. "If that's the case, it doesn't matter what I do." Lucia leaned powerlessly against Dalen's body, her eyes half closed, with tears flowing out of them. She didn't know if she had made the right decision. However, she really didn't want to do this to Dalen anymore. Every thoughtful thing Dalen did for her would only make her want to get closer to him. When they returned home, Lucia looked at her wet clothes in the bedroom mirror. She then looked at Dalen and said, "I'm going to take a bath." "Use the bathtub and soak for a long time," Dalen said. Lucia nodded and went into the bathroom. When the bathtub was full, Lucia stepped in. Warm water immediately enveloped her body, making her feel very comfortable. Dalen was worried that she might catch a cold, so he wanted her to take a bath. She didn't want to hurt him anymore. He was being so kind. Lucia had been soaking in the water for almost 20 minutes. Sitting in the bathtub with her arms around her shins and her chin on her knees, she was lost in thought. Then Lucia looked up and saw Dalen, who had entered the room without her noticing. Lucia instantly tensed up, hugging herself tightly. "Sorry, do you need the shower?" "What have you been doing here for so long?" Dalen asked her. Lucia was stunned. Ignoring Lucia's confusion, Dalen started to undress. The bathtub was very big, and Dalen apparently wanted to join. Lucia blushed and turned around, trying to lean away. However, there wasn't enough room to maneuver. Her heart raced. "I'll give you 3 seconds. If you want to leave, go now." Dalen's hoarse and sexy voice vibrated in the bathroom. Lucia's breathing quickened. Three seconds? Dalen's voice sounded again. 1. It sounded like a timer. It quickened her heartbeat. Lucia's mind was buzzing. 2. Lucia wanted to leave, but her body wouldn't obey her. Just when Lucia was wondering what she should do, Dalen said, "Time is up." "This so fast?" Lucia's mind went blank. Even so, she was still nervous. "What's wrong?" Following Dalen's line of sight, the color of her face changed. Why is my period here again?" Lucia had a stupefied expression on her face. Was her cycle in chaos? Dalen's face suddenly darkened. With a tight expression, he suppressed his anger and asked, "What happened between you and Axel?" Lucia's expression froze. Why did he suddenly mention this? Dalen still couldn't feel truly relieved, could he? Otherwise, why would he have such an expression? Lucia's heart throbbed in pain. If she had known earlier, she would have resisted more. I'm done washing. I want to get up," Lucia said. Lucia moved to rise from the bathtub, but Dalen stopped her. Dalen tried his best to sound normal. "Just tell me, what happened that day? Did Axel really touch you? Do you remember?" Lucia looked at Dalen in shock. Why did he want the details? Dalen saw the blank expression on Lucia's face and suppressed his restless emotions. You're still a virgin. Did you know that? Huh? Lucia was stunned by Dalen's words. How is that possible? Didn't Axel and I already... Lucia was so shocked by this change that she could not regain her senses. Dalen was going crazy, wanting to see what was on Lucia's mind. Dalen stepped out of the bathtub and wrapped Lucia up. He carried her out of the bathroom and tossed her onto the bed. As soon as Lucia was free, she pulled the blanket over herself. She stared at Dalen, who was standing beside the bed. Speak! What do you want me to say? Lucia lowered her gaze. I'm still confused. I don't know anything. You don't know? Dalen's voice was filled with impatience. I really don't know. Lucia's voice trailed off. Tell me exactly what happened that day. That day, Lucia tried to recall what had happened. She hadn't wanted to remember. I was drugged, weak and miserable. Then Axel was there. There was a wave of pain, and then I fainted. Where did it hurt? Dalen asked. It hurt. Lucia thought hard but was uncertain. Dalen could tell from her expression that she didn't understand it herself, so he started poking and pinching her body. Lucia was shocked. What are you doing? It hurts! Dalen stared at Lucia with his sharp gaze. There was a shallow knife scar on her stomach. He remembered the doctor mentioning the scar back at the hospital when Lucia was being treated. He was so concerned about Lucia's well-being, as well as the stab of betrayal at the moment, that he never stopped to think about the sharp knife cut on her. It was cut by a sharp weapon, probably done intentionally by someone. Dalen thought about the moment when the garage door opened and he saw small droplets of blood on the ground. Only now did he realize that it wasn't from Lucia's first time. Axel had cut her. But why? Dalen, what are you doing? Let me go! Lucia felt embarrassed to be interrogated so much. Dalen had never realized something could change his mood so much. He thought that he had lost something, but he realized that he hadn't. He had always been cold and proud, and he had always minded things 10 times more than an ordinary person. So at this moment, Dalen was overjoyed. He held Lucia tightly, as if she was his most precious treasure. He would never let her go, never let her get hurt again. Dalen lowered his head and comforted her. Tears welled up in the corners of Lucia's eyes as the pain from that disastrous night spread all across her body all over again. It was as if she could feel every bit of it happening again. Under Dalen's gentle comforting, her pain slowly dissipated. When Lucia woke up, she wondered if she was in heaven. However, when the pain spread throughout her entire body, she felt like she had come back to life. Her body felt like it had been run over by a large car. It made Lucia want to cry uncontrollably. You're awake? Dalen asked. Lucia's brow creased as she turned her head with difficulty, looking at the tall figure standing beside the bed. It was Dalen, who was in high spirits. Lucia cried, Don't worry, you won't need to go to the office for the next few days. Lucia looked at him in panic and asked, What do you mean? Didn't you say I'm not kind sometimes? Then I must do something that is kind for you to see. Lucia was shocked. I was wrong. You are kind. Dalen turned around and left. Lucia looked at the time on the bedside table. It was already noon. Had she slept from last night until now? Lucia felt all the nerves in her body tense up. She was so shocked that, before Dalen came in, Lucia tried to move her body off the bed. Lucia wanted to hide in the closet, but her body was in pain and every movement made her wince. She was so upset and frustrated that she wanted to cry. Dalen walked into the bedroom, and Lucia was so frightened that she immediately huddled into a ball. He panicked like a thief. Dalen held her lunch in his hands and watched Lucia. "If you can get out of bed, then I'm useless," Dalen said extremely arrogantly. "If I can get out, will you let me do things by myself?" Lucia did not want to stay on the bed. "Sure." "You're the one who said that. Don't go back on your word," Lucia warned. She tried again to get out of the bed, but found that she could not. "Can you get me a glass of water?" Lucia asked. To Lucia's surprise, he turned around and actually went to get her a cup of water. Lucia took the glass and said, "Can you turn around? I want to change into new clothes." Dalen did not respond. He just stood there and looked at her. Lucia had no other choice. She had to hide in the quilt and put on her pajamas. Lucia made a final attempt to get out of bed. However, when her feet touched a carpet and she tried to stand up, she suddenly fell forward. Dalen had already known that this would happen, and he stretched out his arm and easily caught her. Lucia laid in Dalen's arm, his arms supporting her entire body. Lucia was shocked by the strength in Dalen's arms. Her face was flushed, and she wished that she could find a hole to hide in. Dalen carried Lucia and put her back on the bed. "How about you give me another chance?" Lucia asked. "It's the same no matter how many more chances I give you. After eating, you might have a chance." Dalen sat on the edge of the bed with a bowl in his hand. He looked perfectly normal. However, Lucia still felt awkward in her heart. When Dalen brought the spoon to her mouth, Lucia didn't open her mouth. Instead, she asked, "Was all of that true last night?" "Yes," Dalen answered as he lowered the spoon. "I was drugged, and I wasn't too sure what happened. I felt a sharp pain in my body, and then I fainted. So nothing happened?" "It didn't happen. Are you disappointed?" Dalen looked at her with a troubled expression. "When did I say that? I'm just surprised. I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed at all," Lucia said with disdain. Then she asked in confusion, "Since Axel didn't touch me, why did he not tell you that after you locked him up? It would have cleared up this whole misunderstanding so much sooner." This was exactly what Dalen wanted to know. He used the spoon to poke Lucia's lips, indicating that she should eat. Lucia came back to her senses and ate, sipping on the savory broth. "Have you already eaten?" Lucia asked. "Only now did you remember to ask if I had eaten?" Dalen teased. Lucia immediately said, "I'll feed myself. You go eat." Dalen smiled at her. "I'll eat after I'm done feeding you." Once she'd emptied the contents of the bowl, she asked, "Do you have more of this soup? I'm still a bit hungry." Lucia looked eagerly at Dalen. Dalen didn't say anything. He stood up and walked out of the room and told the servant to bring more for her. John brought extra soup, and Dalen went back to the bed and continued to feed her. Dalen fed her mouthful by mouthful, but his eyes were focused on Lucia. Lucia's appearance was really adorable and attractive. Dalen stretched out his arm toward her, and Lucia leaned slightly back, apprehensive of his intentions. He stroked her cheek, even though Lucia still had food in her mouth, and her cheeks were full. Lucia wanted to struggle, but there was no point. Eventually, she relaxed into his gentle touch. Lucia could hardly think. She heard Dalen's voice that sounded as if it was muted. With an extremely hoarse voice, he said, "Have some more." Lucia sat up straight from his arms and looked at him with a frown. "You know I haven't finished yet. Why are you distracting me?" "There's nothing I can do about it. You're just so cute when you eat," Dalen said, without changing his expression. Lucia didn't know how to respond. Could he be any more shameless? After Lucia finished her lunch, she took a nap, but before she fell asleep, she let herself rejoice in the fact that she was still a virgin. and that she didn't do anything to let Dalen down. The guilt in her heart no longer existed. It even made her feel happy for the first time in weeks. However, thinking about Axel's actions, she was a bit confused. Why didn't Axel tell Dalen the truth? And that day in front of the supermarket, why didn't Axel say anything to her about it? What was he plotting? Before Lucia could figure it out, she had already drifted off to sleep. Lucia slept until dinner, and by then her body was feeling much better. She had slept comfortably for the entire afternoon without a single disturbance. But now, Lucia, who had been disturbed from her sleep, opened her eyes with a drowsy look and saw Dalen. "Ah, Dalen, what are you doing sneaking up on me like that?" Lucia was shocked. Dalen asked in a rough and calm voice, "You're awake? Perfect." Who would have thought that Dalen would suddenly revert back to previous habits? Hearing Dalen's words, Lucia immediately blushed. She knew what he wanted from her. "Dalen, don't go overboard," Lucia said, as she raised her foot to kick Dalen. It didn't matter if he was good-looking or not. Things were moving a bit too quickly. Dalen was defeated by her cuteness. He said lovingly to Lucia, "It's fine if you're not ready, but please call me husband." "Husband," Lucia whispered. Her face was so red she tried to cover her face with her hands. "Don't whisper, shout it." Dalen pulled her hand away from her face. It was not easy for Lucia to call him that. "Why would I scream?" Lucia asked, blinking at him. Her face was bright red. It made Dalen like her more. It was even more impossible to let her go. "Do it," Dalen coaxed. He was in a good mood today. But suddenly she felt a stab of pain in her stomach and cried out in pain. "I'm still so young. I don't want to die young." Lucia lay on the bed, tears in her eyes as she bit the blanket to keep from screaming. Dalen's face was furrowed with concern. "Don't worry. With me here, you'll live for 100 years, Dalen said intimately while holding her close to him. Lucia looked up at him with a pained expression. "Are you sure I will live to be 100 years old? I'll have to get out of this room first." "No," Dalen said bluntly. "Why? It's been almost a week." "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." Lucia rested her head back on the pillow. Dalen refused to listen to her. In the hall, John and Edward were talking. "Edward, Mr. and Mrs. Patrick have already stayed in the room for 5 days and have not come out," John said. "Didn't you already go into their room? Didn't you see them?" Edward asked. "Yes, I saw them. However, Lucia's face was red and her eyes sparkled. I think they made up. But even if they did, there's no reason to stay in the room for this long, right?" John asked curiously. "It's a personal matter." Lucia felt a little embarrassed to speak the truth. When she thought about what she had done in the past few days, she felt that her life was ridiculous. "What personal business can you have? Is it Dalen?" Cole pried. "Why are you asking when you know you're right?" Lucia sighed. "I want to hear the truth. The matter between you and Dalen always makes my imagination run wild." Lucia was irate. How could Cole be so shameless? "Tell me honestly, do you have to fantasize about other people's love lives because yours is so boring?" "Aren't you the same? Whenever I talk about boyfriends, I'm sure you have your own fantasies." Cole shot back. "That depends on who your boyfriend is." "Jeff." "You really are clueless. He told you to your face that he doesn't like you." Besides, Lucia thought, if it were him, I would gag thinking about it. People can have ideals, can't they? What if it works out? Cole asked with hurt in his voice. What Cole said rendered Lucia speechless. "Actually, I think Mark is a pretty good guy." Lucia hinted as she dug her fingers into her forehead and looked at the ceiling. He's a lawyer. Now we just need to find out if he's into men or not. Lucia and Cole were both full of laughter when Lucia was stunned by the sudden appearance of Dalen in the bedroom. Her laughter abruptly stopped. "Why are you here?" Lucia asked in horror. Cole, who was on the other end of the phone, suddenly felt that something was wrong and quickly hung up. "I was eating in the next room. Didn't you know that?" Dalen stared at Lucia with a sharp gaze. "Don't you eat downstairs?" Lucia felt herself crumbling. "Who told you that?" "So you've been eating in the next room for the past few days?" Lucia asked, thinking it was unbelievable. However, when she saw Dalen's silent expression, she was shocked. "Then why haven't I heard anything? I always hear the door open and close." "It's a servant," Dalen replied. Lucia's heart trembled. Every time Dalen went to eat, she would lie on the bed and curse Dalen. Did Dalen hear everything she said? Lucia asked with uncertainty, "Did you hear all the things I said before?" "I clearly heard what you just said," Dalen said expressionlessly. "What did I just say?" After Lucia asked, Dalen's expression darkened. "You said, 'Mark is not bad. I want to know what's good about him.'" Dalen sat down on the edge of the bed. It made Lucia catch her breath. "I'm not saying he's good. I mean, it would be good if he were with Cole. That's what I meant." "In the future, don't let me hear you praise other men," Dalen said. "You can only praise me. Remember?" "Do you need to be so self-conscious? Anyone with eyes can see you're in an entirely different league than all the other men. I've been in contact with you almost every day, so I should know." Lucia quickly flattered him. After hearing that, Dalen's mood turned better. However, he still remained expressionless. "Take a bath," Dalen said. "Huh? I don't want a bath," Lucia immediately said. However, Dalen ignored her refusal and took her straight to the bathroom. "I'll just take a shower," Lucia said, hoping to minimize her time in the bathroom. "Taking a bath can clear your mind and soothe your muscles. Don't you feel uncomfortable?" Dalen asked. "Fine," Lucia finally agreed. Actually, the bath was really comfortable and full of bubbles, but with Dalen around, it made her feel uncomfortable. However, after relaxing her body, all her muscles relaxed and her stress melted away. She felt Dalen sit on the edge of the tub and she squinted her eyes, like a kitten that was being exposed to the sun. Dalen supported her lower jaw with one hand. His eyes stared fixedly at Lucia's shining face. He stared without blinking, with a look of adoration on his face. The calmness of the moment made everything beautiful. But he actually came to tell her about Dalen's absence. "What? You said he hasn't gone to the office for half a month? That's too long. Has something happened?" Linda was worried about her son. "No, he must just be resting in the mansion. After all, being in charge of such a huge business for so long, it's natural for him to be occasionally tired," Robert said in a fake manner. "He wouldn't do that. Something must have happened," Linda said to Robert. Linda knew her son too well. He wouldn't stay in the mansion for so long. She also understood her son's temperament. Even if something bad had happened, he wouldn't tell anyone or ask for help. He wouldn't let her know either. Linda was worried that either her son was in trouble or he was having too good of a time with her daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, at the mansion, a car stopped outside and Jeff stepped out. His body was covered in black and his mood was cold and gloomy. After getting out of the car, he looked around. Then he walked into the mansion. He had tried looking for Dalen at his family office, but learned that Dalen hadn't been there in weeks. "Jeff, you're here." Edward immediately went up to greet him. "Where's Dalen?" Jeff asked. Edward hesitated for a moment, thinking about what to say. Jeff continued, "Don't give me any excuses. He is not at his office nor any other place. He must be here. Go and tell him that I'm here and I need to speak with him." Jeff instructed without any expression. He then walked in the direction of the side hall. When he saw the sofa in the side hall, he fell into a trance for a moment, remembering the last time he had interacted with Lucia. Lucia, who had tried to sneak attack him. Jeff was only attracted to her because he could never understand her. Edward thought for a moment and said to Jeff's retreating figure, "Wait a moment, I'll go now." With that, Edward walked upstairs. Standing before the door, he lifted his hand and knocked. "Mr. Patrick, Jeff is here." Dalen was sweating profusely on the bed. Even when he heard the knock on the door, he didn't get up to talk with Edward. Dalen growled, "I don't have time. Tell him to scram." Even through the door, Edward trembled from the roar. He immediately left to find Jeff, who was sitting on the sofa in the side room drinking tea. Edward walked over and said, "Sir, Mr. Patrick doesn't have time to see you right now." "What do you mean he doesn't have time? What did he say?" Jeff's expression was dark. "His exact words were, 'I don't have time, tell him to scram,'" Edward said, trying not to crack a smile. Jeff's face turned red. He stood up with an imposing manner. "No time? Is he in the room with Lucia?" "Yes." Jeff turned around and left. However, his face appeared as though he was about to kill someone. Not long after Jeff left, Dalen and Lucia finished with a landslide and an earth-shattering battle. Dalen was about to sleep with Lucia in his arms when a knock sounded on the door again. Dalen thought that Jeff had come back and was about to curse. "Mr. Patrick, your mom is here," Edward said. Dalen frowned. Lucia, who was in his arms, opened her eyes wide. "Don't move. I'll go," Dalen said to her. "I think it's better if I go too. Otherwise Mom will get angry," Lucia said, thinking back to last time. Linda was very unhappy because she had hidden in her room and refused to come down. "You want me to carry you down?" Dalen looked at her in ridicule and asked. Lucia was speechless. She couldn't see Linda in this state. She might as well stay in her room, otherwise it would be too embarrassing. She lay down again. Dalen covered her with the blanket and said, "Sleep." "Mom won't be angry? She got angry last time." "With your husband here, what are you afraid of? Close your eyes." "Oh." Lucia closed her eyes obediently. Dalen sat on the edge of the bed and watched her. In less than a minute, she was breathing deep and even. Lucia had already fallen asleep. Dalen went downstairs in his pajamas. He didn't want to hide what he was doing in the room. It was the first time that anyone in the mansion had seen Dalen walk out of his room in 2 weeks. "Mr. Patrick." Edward bowed respectfully. On the sofa in the hall, Linda sat quietly, waiting. Dalen sat down on the opposite sofa and leaned back lazily. "Why are you here?" he asked. "What? I can't come over to see my own son." Linda looked her son up and down. Dalen looked fine, but he was really just staying in the mansion? Linda was in disbelief. Half a month was a long time. So Linda asked hesitantly, "Have you been staying in the mansion recently? You don't go out?" "I gave myself a break," Dalen replied. "Were you still asleep at this time of the day?" Linda asked. She could tell that Dalen had just gotten out of the bed. There's no need to change if I stay in the room. Dalen's expression was so calm that it was hard to doubt him. Linda looked around. Thinking of something, she said, "Don't tell me Lucia also hasn't been to work for half a month. She really doesn't care about anything anymore." "Where's Lucia?" Linda asked Dalen, after he didn't respond to her question. "She's sleeping," Dalen answered. Linda's expression instantly turned ugly. "Why is she sleeping every time I come?" "She's preparing to give you a grandson," Dalen smiled. Linda was stunned. "She's pregnant?" Although she was not fond of Lucia, if she had a child, they would be her biological grandson. She liked the idea. "Not yet. I'm working on it," Dalen said. Linda finally understood why her son was still wearing his pajamas, and she couldn't help but glare at her son. "Didn't you say that she's still young and you don't want to get her pregnant?" Dalen said lazily, "I've changed my mind." "You want children?" "Something like that." "You're 30 years old. You should have a baby by now. It's not that important to show up at the office every day, but you don't need to stay out for half a month either. What do you want your employees to think? Robert is eyeing you like a tiger eyeing its prey. You should know better," Linda scolded. "So you know that I haven't gone to the office for half a month. Did you hear it from Robert?" Dalen's eyes were filled with a cold light. "I know what you're thinking, but is it true that you've been taking work for granted lately?" "If he wants to take over my position, even if I don't go to the office for a month, he doesn't have the ability to do so." Dalen was expressionless. "Fine, then don't say any more." With that, Linda left the mansion. Dalen didn't have an expression on his face, but his eyes were full of coldness. When Lucia woke up, she found that she was being hugged by Dalen. She met Dalen's smiling eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. "I'm going to the office today. Have a good rest at home." Lucia thought of something and asked, "You're going to the office. Didn't you say that yesterday?" "So you want me to go back on my word?" No, I didn't mean it that way. You really should go to the office," Lucia quickly said. When Dalen got out of bed, he warned, "Don't run off to the office before you can get some rest. If I find out, I won't forgive you." "Do you think I have the strength to go to the office now?" she asked, feeling miserable. "It's good that you know your limits." Lucia didn't know how to respond to that. When Dalen, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared at the office, everyone was in awe. He motioned to one of his assistants and ordered, "Tell Axel to see me in my office." Not long after, Axel came to Dalen's office. When he walked in, he saw Dalen sitting on a black chair, looking at Axel maliciously with his black eyes. "What do you want?" Compared to Dalen's gloomy expression, Axel was more composed. It was as if he didn't do anything wrong. "Guess why I called you here," Dalen growled. Axel pondered for a moment and said, "I have no idea. I can't guess." Dalen stood up and walked towards Axel with an oppressive stance. Standing eye to eye, Dalen looked at him coldly. "Axel, I just realized that you also have the ability to play games. Wasn't it interesting to see how angry I was when I imprisoned you?" Axel revealed a bitter smile. "So you know, actually, I'm not playing a game. I'm just thinking, how much do you really care about Lucia? Would you not want her if she wasn't a virgin? Would you divorce her because she betrayed you? It seems you really care about her. Even if she cheated on you, you still want to have her. What gave you the right to get between her and me?" Dalen's expression was dark. "Dalen, Don't you know that I like her? But I still let you marry her. Don't you think you should thank me? Axel asked. Dalen glared at Axel. His face was expressionless, but the restlessness and jealousy in his heart became even more rampant, because he believed what Axel said was the truth. It was like Axel knew exactly how to get into Dalen's head. Lucia had only married him because she was tricked. The person Lucia actually wanted to marry was Axel. She's my wife. She will only belong to me for the rest of her life, and you will have nothing to do with her. Do you understand? Dalen said coldly. Understood, Axel muttered. Axel, my patience is limited. Axel sighed and spoke louder. She chose you. In the future, I'll never think of her again. Get out. Dalen looked at him coldly. After Axel left, Dalen's heart was torn. No matter who she used to like, Lucia's heart and body now belonged to him. Lucia belonged to him alone, and that had nothing to do with anyone else. That was the most important thing. Axel returned to his office and sat on his seat in a daze. Would he really regret not touching Lucia that day? He didn't find an answer, but he felt that he had been wrong to give up on Lucia. Perhaps he had been wrong from the beginning, and now he had been wrong until the end. However, he couldn't do anything about it. The knock on the door brought him back to reality. Robert entered his office. Why was Dalen looking for you? It was nothing. He just asked me about the business budgets. Come on. You were obviously lying to me. If he really wanted to know what's going on with the budgets, why would he ask you? And you still haven't told me why Dalen imprisoned you. I know it must have something to do with the party, and I still don't understand how that villa could have been blown up so easily. Who did that? What was his goal? Who is he trying to deal with? Didn't you check the rubble? Axel asked. Yes, nothing was found. Dalen probably had it checked too, so there probably weren't any leads. Robert looked at his calm son and asked, Are you sure you don't want to tell me about what happened that day? Axel was silent for a while and then said, No. Robert's face turned ugly and he said, It's related to you and Lucia, and that makes it hard for you to talk about, right? Don't think I can't tell you like her. Why did you let Dalen marry her? She could have belonged to you. Just like in the business, if Dalen's in the way, you won't fight for anything. In the end, you act like everything belongs to him. How are you worse than him? You were not as ruthless as him, and you were not as heartless as him. So you're going to give him everything, and be left with nothing? Axel, there will be a day when you regret it. Robert stood up and left after his lecture, leaving Axel to sit there alone with a cold expression. Lucia realized when Dalen wasn't in the mansion, she felt more at ease. It wasn't that she didn't want him around. It was just that he was a little too demanding. He probably didn't know himself, but being with Dalen was like being around a child who was in constant need of attention. After such a long afternoon in bed, it was difficult to get up. It felt unreal, even when her feet landed on the ground. She actually hadn't gotten out of bed for half a month. No matter how inexperienced Lucia was, she knew that no one entered the bridal room and then stayed in bed for half a month. She had underestimated Dalen's stamina and ability. Lucia got out of the bed and walked a few steps. She felt very tired and sore. When Lucia wandered to the door, she was wondering if she should go out. She hadn't gone out for half a month. What would the servants think? Dalen was thick-skinned and shameless, but she was more self-conscious. Lucia first opened the door a crack, then stretched out her head. Her eyes met John's gaze and they simply stared at each other for a moment. "Are you up already, young lady? Are you hungry? I cooked you porridge," John said. Lucia opened the door with a shaky arm. "What are you doing standing at my door with nothing to do? It's quite scary." "Madame, I just happened to walk over at this very moment," John said innocently. Lucia hesitantly asked, "Is Dalen back yet?" "Not yet. Mr. Patrick instructed us to prepare your food when you woke up." John's eyes shone as he looked at Lucia. Lucia was unable to read John's expression as she said, "Carry it in. I'm really hungry." John's eyes lit up because he had overheard Dalen and Linda's conversation. After Lucia sat down, she started to eat the porridge bit by bit. John couldn't help but ask, "Madame, are you preparing to give birth to a child?" Lucia immediately choked on her food. "Oh no, Madame, are you all right?" John asked hurriedly. Lucia shook her head. "It was just a cough, nothing serious." "I'm fine, but who told you that?" "I heard Mr. Patrick and his mother say so." Furthermore, neither of them had come out of their rooms for half a month, but John felt embarrassed and didn't say this out loud. "What did Dalen and his mom say?" Lucia asked incredulously as she lost her appetite. "Linda asked why you were still sleeping, and then Mr. Patrick said that you wanted to give her a grandson." Lucia was speechless. She and Dalen hadn't talked about children. "I can tell that you are very happy," John said, oblivious to Lucia's emotions. She wasn't ready to have a baby. Lucia wasn't ready to have a baby. Lucia thought about how Dalen didn't seem to have done anything in the past half month. But no, not necessarily. Maybe she was the one who was overthinking things. How could she get pregnant so quickly? "Ma'am, are you not going to eat anymore? Try to eat it all. The porridge is good for pregnant women. It helps reduce stretch marks too. After giving birth, your skin will be just like it was before," John said. Lucia looked at the porridge in the bowl. However, as she thought more, she began to scoop spoonful after spoonful into her mouth. Was she really going to be a mother? Dalen returned to the mansion. When he entered the room, Lucia was leaning on the bed, playing with her cell phone. Seeing his tall figure entering the bedroom, Lucia only raised her eyes a moment before continuing to play on her phone. Dalen came over and snatched the phone away. Lucia frowned. "Why are you taking my phone? Give it back to me." "Is that the face you give when you see your husband? Do you want to try again?" Dalen sneered. "Did you tell your mother I'm pregnant?" Lucia asked, ignoring his rude comment. "Yes." Lucia observed Dalen's expression and asked, "It's not true, right?" "It's true," Dalen answered. "How? Isn't it too early to tell? And I thought you wanted to wait." Lucia immediately pouted and said unhappily, "It's the law of nature." "The law of nature? You should have told me," Lucia said with a red face. With a forced face, Dalen said, "You will only understand after you give birth to the child." He hadn't wanted Lucia to have children so soon, but only by having a child could he be sure that Lucia would stay by his side and never think of leaving. Lucia pulled Dalen's shirt pitifully with her small hands, growing increasingly desperate. "Dalen, I'm really not fit to have children right now. Can't we wait 2 years, 1 year, even half a year?" "Don't bargain with me. There's no room for negotiation," Dalen said in a strong tone. There was no time to delay the birth of a child. Dalen ignored Lucia's expression that screamed betrayal. "No way! No way! I can't give birth to a child!" Lucia cried. "So you want me to feel bad for you?" Dalen asked, getting annoyed with Lucia's arguments. "No matter how you console me, I feel wronged." You have to give birth to your child. And after that, the entire Patrick family business is yours, Dalen said without any hesitation. Lucia was startled. Are you trying to trick me? The entire business? Just by having a child, she could gain the entire business? However, Dalen didn't answer her. He only glanced at her indifferently, turned around, and left the room. Lucia was left alone on the bed, looking dazed. Soon, Dalen returned to the room and threw a black and white contract in front of her. Lucia held it in her hand and looked down. It really was a contract. It said that as long as she gave birth, no matter if it was 1, 2, or a bunch of kids, the Patrick business would all be hers. For a minute, she couldn't help but feel used. The rebel Lucia that had been hiding somewhere beneath her slowly started to wake up again. She didn't like being treated as a commodity, no matter what Dalen's intentions were for her. Lucia was so shocked that she forgot to roll her eyes. As long as you have control of the business, you have control of me. Now, do you want to have children? Dalen asked. Lucia couldn't believe her ears. Yes. The controlling Lucia was wide awake now. She couldn't help but rejoice in the fact that even she could probably control Dalen like he had been controlling her for the past few weeks. Then sign here. Dalen gave the pen to her. Without a word, Lucia signed her name at the bottom. Money was nothing to her, but to be able to control Dalen meant that she was in charge of everything. This was too refreshing. Having a baby would be worth it. Dalen looked at Lucia, who had signed the contract. She was holding it with a radiant face. Dalen's eyes were hiding a smile as he calculated his next move. To be able to take out the contract so quickly, he had made preparations beforehand. He knew that Lucia wouldn't willingly give birth to a child. But now, she would never be able to escape from his grasp. When Dalen went to bed that night, Lucia immediately said, You're not allowed to touch me tonight. Let's sleep at a distance. It was safer this way. Dalen, who was lying down, said, Come over here. Didn't you say you would allow me to leave the room? If I come over, I won't be able to leave my room again, let alone go to the office, Lucia complained. Dalen ignored Lucia's protest. Do I have to say it again? Lucia looked like she was patiently enduring. She knew that Dalen's words were serious. Although she was unconvinced, she still forced herself to go into Dalen's arms. She thought Dalen would continue and she was already prepared for the outcome. However, the corner of Dalen's mouth raised into a sexy smile. Tightening his arms, he held her close to his chest, then closed his eyes and went to sleep. Lucia rested for another day, and then she went to the company. Hey, here is a rare guest, Cole said when he saw Lucia walk in. Lucia's face heated up. Is a rare guest welcome here? Lucia asked, playing along. Of course you're welcome. Warmly welcome. If I would have known you might come to the office today, I would have made sure to buy you some fresh flowers, Cole said. How's the work these days? Lucia asked as she sat down on the chair. The company is doing fine. Don't worry. Nothing will happen to the company. Cole moved closer to the desk. Then did you and Dalen finally... How did you know? Lucia was stunned. Of course I know. Who am I? I'm your best friend. If I couldn't even tell, what's the point of being your friend? Cole asked, smiling broadly. After I left to eat that afternoon, you went to find Dalen, right? What made you take the initiative? Seriously, how do you know that? Lucia was really curious. She felt like Cole must be a gossip expert. Because the news of you running out to find Dalen has already spread throughout the company. What? Lucia was extremely surprised. Cole shrugged. Nothing escapes their notice. You were spotted when you passed by the entrance of the office. Lucia gasped. Truly, gossip is everywhere. Cole held Lucia's face in his hands. Dalen really loves you. No matter what you did to him, no matter how much you hurt him, he wouldn't let go of you. And now you've been at home for half a month. It's simply unimaginable. Lucia looked at Cole and said, I suspect that you have had many boyfriends behind my back. No, I don't have a boyfriend. At this moment, Lucia's phone screen lit up. She took a look and saw that it was from Dalen. She immediately turned around so that Cole couldn't peek at her screen. Opening it, Lucia's face turned red. The Patrick family's meeting room was filled, and Dalen sat in the seat of honor, aloof and cold. Occasionally, his sharp gaze would sweep over the higher-ups, causing people to wonder at his unfathomable depth. Under the table, he held a cell phone in his hand as he sent a message. The others were completely oblivious to it. The truth was, he was dissatisfied with all the upper echelons. Thus, he called this meeting to make them tremble in fear. They had no idea he was texting his wife about something that was entirely inappropriate. Lucia threw her cell phone on the desk and leaned forward on the table, holding her head in her hands. What is it? You were in an exceptionally good mood just a moment ago. So how did you become like this in the blink of an eye? Are you angry at Dalen? Cole asked. Nope. Lucia didn't dare to be angry with Dalen. Lucia walked out of the office and wandered to the door of Mark's office. After some thought, she pushed the door open and entered. Lucia was the only person who walked into Mark's office without knocking. Mark, who was doing some work, was stunned for a moment. Then he raised his head and saw Lucia, who was entering with her hands in her pockets. Mrs. Patrick. Mark immediately stood up. Lucia sat down on the sofa and crossed her legs. You seem to be quite busy. Did I disturb you? She asked. Not at all. As the company's general manager, Mr. Leland, I can't quite be convinced that you're actually not busy. It's really unbelievable. Lucia sighed with emotion. Mark sat on the opposite sofa and looked at Lucia. It had been half a month since he last saw Lucia, but she seemed to be different. It looked like she had made peace with Dalen. He had met with Dalen earlier in the day, and he also seemed to be in a good mood. Why are you only staring at me? Lucia snapped. No, it just looks like your mood is pretty good. That's all. There's nothing different. My mood has always been the same. Although she said that, Lucia thought to herself, do I really look like I'm in a good mood? She couldn't let anyone else see that something was wrong. By the way, if I let your ex-wife return to her career, would you be willing to help? Lucia suddenly asked. That is her problem. It has nothing to do with me. I've already given you a chance. I won't ask again next time. Think about it carefully. Lucia looked at Mark's face. She stood up after a while, ready to leave. Just as she was about to reach the office door, it was Tracy's fault, Mark said. If you can forgive her, that would help her out a lot. Wow, Mark, it looks like you do really care about her. Before, you said you wouldn't remarry, but sooner or later, I think. After Lucia finished her sentence, she left with a smile on her face. Mark's face was tense. Lucia played a game at her desk, waiting for lunch. Then her cell phone rang. Lucia looked at the screen. Why is it Dalen again? She picked up the phone and answered, Hello? What are you doing? A low and deep voice that sounded like magnetism drifted into her ear. Guess, Lucia teased. Playing games. You're right. Lucia nodded. Why ask when he already knows what she's doing? I'll come over now and take you to lunch, Dalen said. Aren't you busy? Logically speaking, he hadn't been in the office for half a month. He should be swamped with work. I can always steal some time to see my beautiful wife. Lucia's face instantly flushed red as a warm feeling flowed through her heart. Dalen hung up the phone, and Lucia immediately dropped her phone on the table. It was as if it was a red-hot piece of iron. Cole, who had finished his work and was getting ready to eat, walked into Lucia's office. "What kind of expression is that? There is nothing good about acting cute with me." Lucia squinted at him. Cole ignored her and asked, "What do you want to eat for lunch? I'll treat you and comfort you for half a month's work." "Don't mention that to me." Lucia knew what Cole meant and was furious. Fine. I won't mention it. Seriously, what do you want to eat?" Lucia looked a little uncomfortable. "Dalen is coming over to take me out to eat." "All right, whatever. I'm leaving." Cole waved his hand and left the office. Dalen arrived shortly after Cole left and went straight into Lucia's office. When Lucia saw his tall and strong figure, she was stunned for a moment. "You should have told me you were here. I could have met you downstairs." "Are you hungry?" Dalen asked. "I'm not hungry." Lucia didn't stand up. She was pretending to scan through some files on her computer left by Cole. Her eyebrows were knitted together in frustration. Dalen walked over and stood behind her, watching her pretend to work when he realized she had been playing a game on an alternate screen. The screen went black. I've lost again!" Lucia howled in anger. "Allow me." Dalen began to unbutton his sleeves. "Huh? Will you?" Although Lucia was suspicious, she stood up and handed over the control. "I haven't won once the entire day. The other player is too good." Dalen glanced at Lucia and she shrank back. "I'll help you beat him." Dalen sat down in her chair. Lucia stood to the side and explained to Dalen how to play the game. After that, she could only watch from the sidelines. After watching him for a couple of minutes, she realized that Dalen was truly a genius. He even fought better than an old pro like her. His fingers were slender and powerful, yet extremely nimble. Lucia's heart thumped in her chest. Finally, Dalen struck the killing blow. We've won!" Lucia jumped up happily. Dalen turned around to look at the happy Lucia. His lips curled up as he asked, "Who's amazing?" "You're amazing." "Who?" Lucia was stunned for a moment before her face turned red. She retreated a few steps before saying, "You're the best." "Remember, you are married to a powerful person," Dalen said calmly as he buttoned his shirt cuff. "Actually, there's no need to brag," Lucia whispered. "What did you say?" Of course Dalen had heard her. He just wanted to see if she had the guts to repeat herself. "Eh? Did I speak? I didn't say anything." Lucia took 2 steps back. Lucia's face turned red after being caught. When she heard Dalen stand up, her heart raced even faster. She stood there motionlessly, looking at him with caution. As he got closer and closer, Lucia nervously closed her eyes. "Let's eat," Dalen said, as he brushed past Lucia. Lucia opened her eyes and saw that Dalen was already walking out the door. Lucia felt a burst of relief in her heart and quickly followed him. The 2 of them went downstairs and got into the car. All the way to the restaurant, Dalen was rather well behaved and didn't try to do anything to her. However, when their private dining room's door was closed, Dalen pressed Lucia against the wall, raising her leg and gripping her thigh. "Dalen, what are you doing?" Lucia was lifted up before she could react, her heart racing with the spontaneity of the moment. They ordered all of Lucia's favorite dishes. She was so frazzled that she had to use her food to calm herself down and focus her attention on the food. Lucia was always happiest when she was eating delicacies, so she concentrated on them wholeheartedly. As the mood became more serious, Lucia remembered something. She said to Dalen, "Can we help out Tracy? It's not easy for her anymore, and she didn't do it on purpose. Is that all right?" Dalen said calmly, "It depends on my mood." Lucia walked back into the office alone and saw Cole, who was carrying his cell phone. She leaned over to him. I'll stay at your place tonight. Huh? He asked, confused. Even if he says that I can't, I still have to. Lucia didn't care. Cole thought of something and immediately became excited. Are you running away from him? Cole asked. Of course not. He and we quarreled, Lucia said calmly. What? Again? Aren't the two of you doing well now? He doesn't care about my feelings at all, Lucia said angrily. It can't be. Cole couldn't think of that scene. Even if Dalen knew that Lucia and Axel really were intimate, he would still forgive them. This was too unrealistic. You're my only friend. If you don't care when I'm feeling wronged, then you're terrible, you know? Lucia lectured seriously. Cole's heart was confused. Let's get off work early today. We'll go shopping, eat dinner, and then return home to your rented apartment. Lucia stood up as she finished her sentence. She went to the bathroom and made a phone call. Dalen, I'm going out shopping with Cole, and we'll later go to his place for dinner before returning back to the mansion, okay? You want to run away? Dalen asked. No, what are you thinking? Not at all. Besides, I wouldn't be able to escape from you anyways, Lucia said. Her heart beat wildly while she was lying. It's good that you understand that. Then it's a deal? With that, Lucia hung up the phone, afraid that Dalen would object in a hurry. Lucia finished her call and walked out of the cubicle. She was so frightened by the figure standing outside that she fell back. Oh my God! Cole crossed his arms and sneered. Is this what you meant by arguing with Dalen? Lucia rolled her eyes. If Dalen ruins my life, Lucia, then it will be because of you. As long as I'm here, he wouldn't dare to do anything, Lucia promised him. You still want to sleep at my place tonight? Cole asked. That's right. But didn't you just say that you would go shopping and eat and go back? You didn't say that you would stay at my place. Clearly, Cole had listened to every single word of Lucia's phone call. You don't understand. He would just say no. Dalen would definitely come and drag me home. If I go to your house and don't tell him, he won't come after me. Are you sure? Cole expressed doubt. When the time comes, I'll say that you got afraid at night and begged me to sleep with you for the night. Lucia had I thought about this long ago look on her face. The two left the office early. Cole was absent-minded as they went shopping. He was the same at dinner. Finally, he said, It's better if you go back. When I think about the fury of Dalen, I can't even eat. If you can't stand it, just leave it to me, Lucia said without looking up. She had already made up her mind that she wasn't going back. After we finish eating, we'll go buy some snacks. It's the most beautiful thing in the world to eat while watching TV, Lucia said. You're nervous too, aren't you? Cole asked. Not possible. Lucia ate with a sullen expression. You're in a hurry. You're afraid that Dalen will catch you midway. Do you know who I am? I'm not afraid of anything. Lucia almost raised her hand. I used to believe that, but now I don't, Cole said calmly. Why? You're not afraid at all, except of Dalen. Cole, you're destroying my prestige. Lucia was unhappy. Just take me in for one night. Just one night. Lucia raised her thin index finger. It would only take one night. She just wanted to hide for a bit. With a home that she couldn't go back to, was there anyone more miserable than her? Of course, Lucia didn't want to go back. Cole put his head in his hands and asked in a low voice, Is Dalen really that powerful? What has it got to do with you? Lucia shot back. Don't sleep at my place. Cole almost slammed the table. Stop! In the end, Lucia still shamelessly went to Cole's rented house. Ah, so comfortable. So comfortable. Lucia collapsed onto the sofa.
The heck? Why don't you take off your shoes?
Cole roared. Sorry. Lucia got up to remove her shoes. Even after a while, she could not immediately relax. Lucia called Dalen. Dalen, Cole said that he's afraid to sleep alone at night, so he asked me to accompany him for one night. It's only for one night. I'll come back tomorrow. You know, he's timid. As his only friend, I can't just desert him, right? I'm sorry. Dalen, are you listening? She had said a lot of things. He should at least give a response, right? However, his silence caused a chill to run down her spine. It was as if Dalen's coldness could be felt through the receiver. It made her especially frightened. After waiting for a long time, she finally heard Dalen's low and unfathomable voice. Got it. Bye-bye then. After Lucia ended the call, she was still in a state of disbelief. Dalen agreed so easily? This really doesn't seem true. She thought that Dalen would threaten her and say some horrible things. But he didn't say anything. This was too unbelievable. Had Dalen finally come to his senses? That must be it. How was he? Was Dalen angry? Did he ask you to come back? Cole asked as he looked at Lucia's complicated expression. No, he agreed, Lucia said. Wow. Cole shrugged. Yay, I have been liberated. Lucia happily went to the sofa. Thinking of something, she said, Cole, why don't you find a bigger house with a room for me? I can share the rent with you. I don't want to, Cole said. Why? I keep having the feeling that something is wrong. What's wrong? Lucia asked. Someone like Dalen wouldn't really let you live with someone else. Cole voiced his doubts. Actually, Lucia felt that this was strange as well. However, Dalen did say yes just now. Maybe he thinks staying the night doesn't matter? Lucia felt that there was nothing wrong with what she had said. It was very possible that this was the case. The two of them soon stopped discussing this issue and started a movie. Just when the two of them were commenting about which celebrity was in the movie, there was a knock on the door. Cole was stunned. Who could that be? Neighbors? Lucia guessed without looking, her eyes fixed on the television. Cole stood up to open the door. He first looked into the peephole and was stunned. He turned around and looked at Lucia, who was still staring at the television, not ready to tell her. However, he was not prepared to open the door either. He returned to the sofa and sat down. Who was it? Lucia asked. Neighbors. Why didn't I hear you open the door? Lucia was curious. I opened it. Didn't you hear it? Lucia shook her head. Maybe I was so focused on watching TV that I didn't hear it. Before he could finish, the door was knocked again. Neighbors again? Lucia asked. It has to be. It's an annoying neighbor. Don't worry about it. Cole waved his hand with a bored look on his face. Lucia found Cole's behavior strange. However, she didn't ask any further questions and just continued stuffing food into her mouth while watching TV. Then the doorbell rang. Still, Cole didn't answer. Spencer, who was standing outside the door, could hear the sound of the TV inside. Just now, it was obvious that Cole had looked out the peephole and then saw him outside, so he intentionally kept it shut. If you don't open the door, I'll kick the door open. The soundproofing in the apartment wasn't good, so Spencer's voice came through the crack in the door. It was very clear. Lucia immediately recognized who it was. Cole was worried that his poor door would really be kicked open, so he immediately jumped up to open it. As soon as the door opened, he asked, What are you doing kicking at my door? How have we offended you? You wouldn't open it, Spencer said coldly. I didn't hear the knock on the door, so of course I didn't open it. Cole played dumb.
I heard that you were afraid to sleep alone at night. Dalen sent me to guard you and let the young mistress return to the mansion, Spencer said. Cole looked back at the sofa and saw that it was empty. When Lucia had heard Spencer's voice, she immediately hid behind the sofa. She felt that Spencer was here to capture her. But Spencer was really going to guard Cole? Cole walked to the sofa and dragged Lucia out. I say, why are you dragging me? Lucia protested. At this time, Cole didn't care about their friendship anymore. He carried Lucia to Spencer and said, I'll give her to you, but you don't have to guard me. Cole, what do you mean? Did I say I was going back? Lucia was extremely shocked. Do you think you have a choice? Cole asked. Spencer's men had come. Was Dalen close by? However, Lucia stubbornly refused to budge. How come I don't have a choice? I want to live here. Young mistress, Mr. Patrick is in the car, Spencer said. Lucia's face stiffened as she pointed with her slender finger. Outside? Yes. Do you even have a choice? I think you should just obediently go down. I don't want any trouble, Cole said to her. Lucia's heart shuddered. She considered it for a moment, then lowered her head and went back to get her backpack and phone. Then she walked past Cole and Spencer with her head lowered and left. Looking at Lucia walking away, Cole saw that Spencer was still standing right outside the door. He asked in confusion, Why aren't you leaving? Like I said, I'll guard you, Spencer repeated himself patiently. I don't need it. Didn't you say you couldn't sleep because you were afraid at night? That's what Lucia said, not me, Cole corrected. After saying that, Spencer still stood there and did not leave. I say, why aren't you leaving? This is Mr. Patrick's order. Cole had never seen someone who was so loyal. I don't need it. Did you not hear me? I never fear sleeping at night. Spencer turned his back and remained in place. If you want to stand, stand. I'm going to sleep. Cole closed the door directly. Then he took his pajamas and went to take a bath. When Lucia walked out of the building, she found Dalen's car parked under the streetlight. The car was like a beast lying in wait in the dark night. Dalen was waiting for his prey to come forward and catch her off guard. When the bodyguard opened the car door, Lucia saw a dark figure sitting inside. He was impossible to ignore. Lucia slowly stepped forward into the car. Dalen's clean-cut face was extremely cold and hard. His pair of sharp black eyes stared at her, as calm as a cold pond. Dalen, why are you here? Didn't you say that I could stay with Cole? Lucia carefully said with a smile as she buckled her seatbelt. Since he's afraid at night, let Spencer guard him. This way, you won't have to stay here anymore. What's the problem? Dalen's eyes focused on her. How could Lucia dare to say no? With a smile, she said, No problem, no problem. Dalen didn't say anything. His sharp eyes just locked onto Lucia. Lucia's small body was curled up by the door. There was nowhere to run. At the apartment, Cole finished his shower and walked to the door. Through the peephole, he saw that Spencer was still there. He didn't believe that Spencer could stand there for an entire night. Cole returned to his room. After Lucia returned to the mansion, she went straight to her room. The oppressive tension in the car made her feel like she was suffocating. She had been worried all the way home. She didn't know how she would be treated when they returned. Everything was normal as she went back to their room. She was afraid of igniting the fuse, so she just tried to go to sleep. But Dalen's powerful voice sounded. Not taking a bath? I'm not washing today, Lucia argued. She took a bath every day, from head to toe, as if there was something dirty on her every day. Don't sleep until you've washed, Dalen frowned. Then you wash first. Lucia knew that she couldn't escape Dalen's domineering attitude.
Thus, she could only obediently accept her fate. Dalen glanced at her coldly. Actually, I washed when I was at Cole's, she lied. You really washed? Dalen asked lightly. Lucia thought about how she had cheated Dalen of his hope, so she said as if it was real, I really washed. I still smell like bath soap. Is that so? Dalen approached Lucia. Lucia panicked. Are you lying? Dalen approached her with a sharp gaze. Is this a sign that you don't trust me? Lucia scoffed, but she was scared of what would come. Dalen directly pulled her into his embrace. Lucia staggered. The oxygen became thinner. Lucia could not stand up straight, and her body swayed slightly. When she was about to fall, Dalen directly held her by the waist and carried her into the bathroom. The shower had already been turned on, and the bathroom was filled with steam. After entering, Lucia was bathed in the hot water, and her entire consciousness came back to her. Lucia's heart was beating like a drum as she watched Dalen's handsome face. Did you forget what you said earlier today? Dalen's voice was low and hoarse as it echoed in the room. Lucia swallowed. Yes. When? Do you need me to remind you? No. Lucia smiled dryly. Lucia racked her memory. Do you still need to ask? Dalen stared at Lucia, who still had no idea what he was referring to. He liked to see her flustered. She was clearly very nervous. But, oh yes, I have one more thing to do. Lucia felt as if her mind was in chaos as she finally managed to come up with a topic. What? Dalen reached out and grabbed her hands. I told you about Tracy's problem. You have to help her. Okay, then satisfy me, Dalen said easily. He had a very relaxed look, but for Lucia, it was simply unacceptable. And all the clothes that Lucia had left on the bathroom floor were now completely wet from her and Dalen's splashing. After Lucia was washed up, Dalen carried her out of the bathroom and placed her on the bed. When she was in the bathroom, Lucia had been smothered by the hot air, which made her head spin. After getting on the bed, she felt the slightly cool air and felt much better. Her eyebrows knitted together. Dalen, can you bring me a cup of hot water? Lucia's throat was slightly hoarse. Dalen held her hands tightly and said with a deep voice, No need. Lucia turned her head in shock and glared at Dalen. Are you still angry at me? Is that what you think? Dalen scoffed. Lucia had tried to be patient, but now she immediately shouted, If you're angry, then so be it! After roaring, she wanted to run. However, she could not struggle free from Dalen's embrace. Dalen, let go of me! Lucia tried to break his grip with her hand, but it was to no avail. Don't you have any strength? Dalen teased. Lucia's body stiffened, and her face flushed red with anger. Don't worry, I'll give you a day off tomorrow, Dalen suddenly said. What do you mean? Lucia did not understand Dalen's intention at all. Because you'll be very tired tomorrow, Dalen smirked. Lucia felt that she couldn't beat his strength, so she changed her strategy. Dalen, I beg you, please don't do this to me. Otherwise, I won't be able to do anything anymore. You can't have an idle wife, can you? What do you mean? You have the greatest contribution, so you don't have to do anything else. This is better than anything else you could do, Dalen said. But I feel uneasy, because I once had a goal of being a perfect housewife. Lucia's face was full of emotions. Raise your head. Dalen cupped his hand around Lucia's lower jaw. Lucia raised her head to look up at him. What did you see? he asked. I'm blind. I can't see. Yes, Lucia wished she was blind. Dalen breathed heavily. What did you say? Cole woke up in the latter half of the night. Spencer had said he would stand at the door all night, but Cole thought he must have left by now, right? He couldn't just stand there forever, could he? Even though he thought this, he still got up from the bed to check. He turned on the light in the living room, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. Oh, crap! He was still there! Doesn't he need to sleep? Cole felt confused. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing. Such a person. Opening the door, Cole was about to speak when he noticed Spencer leaning against the wall with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. Cole moved his face forward and was extremely shocked. How could Spencer fall asleep while standing up? Spencer's eyes opened just as Cole was about to poke him with his fingers to see if he would fall. Cole gasped and immediately took a few steps back. What do you need? Spencer asked. He didn't have any drowsiness on his face, as if he hadn't slept at all. You woke up scared? So you really don't like to sleep alone at night? You've been standing outside my door. How am I supposed to sleep? Let me tell you, I've never woken up in the middle of the night. It was just because you're standing outside my door, Cole said in a rush. Are you leaving or not? Spencer didn't say anything. You're not really going to stand here all night, are you? Cole asked again. Spencer still didn't say anything. Cole heaved a frustrated sigh. How about this? Don't stand outside. Sleep on the sofa in my living room. Before he finished speaking, Spencer turned around and walked into the living room. Cole was dumbstruck as he looked at Spencer. He hadn't even finished speaking? This person was too impolite. Could it be that he was waiting for him to say that? Cole closed the door and walked forward with a cold smile and said sarcastically, Say, do you want to take another bath too? Spencer turned around and looked at him. What do you want to do? Cole looked at Spencer in disbelief. He was so angry that he started laughing. What do you think I would want to do with you? Let me tell you, I have someone I like. Don't think too much of this, okay? With that, Cole rolled his eyes at Spencer. Then he turned around and slammed the door shut. Cole thought this person was very interesting. He let him in because he couldn't sleep thinking there was someone outside. You can't feel comfortable with just anyone, right? It was almost noon when Lucia woke up. As soon as she woke up, her senses were restored. She was the only one on the bed now. She didn't know when Dalen had got up. She was too tired. Lucia supported herself and sat up, blushing as she remembered all that she and Dalen had done last night. Lucia opened and closed her eyes a few times before her blurry vision cleared. Lucia froze as she saw Dalen walk in. You didn't go to the office? Why didn't you go to the office? Weren't you planning on going today? Lucia asked. Later, in the afternoon, Dalen answered. Lucia hadn't slept much that night, and she was very tired after lunch. Dalen looked at Lucia from top to bottom with a sense of mystery, and Lucia looked back at him with a lack of oxygen in her head. Then Lucia closed her eyes and fell asleep. She didn't know when Dalen left the room. When Lucia woke up again, it was almost 4 o'clock. She yawned and turned over, feeling much better than she did this morning. She wouldn't be able to sleep that night if she continued to doze off, so Lucia got off the bed, her feet sinking into the soft carpet. She was exhausted from last night, but she felt that it was fortunate that her physical fitness was not too bad to begin with. However, she noticed that Dalen was in a good mood and looked refreshed. Did she have to live like this? Just thinking about it, Lucia felt that her life had become bleak.
Lucia picked up her phone and saw Cole's missed call. Why didn't she hear the phone right? Did she sleep that deeply? Just as she was thinking about this, a text message came in. Cole, what are you busy with? You're not answering my call. Lucia thought curiously, why is there no sound on my phone? When she looked again, her phone had been muted. She never muted her phone. Thinking about it, the settings must have been adjusted by Dalen. Was it because he was worried that she would be disturbed? Lucia had a sweet smile on her face. Lucia called Cole, who replied, "What are you busy with? Are you not coming to the company again today?" "I'm very busy. I'm not going today," Lucia said defensively. "Is she really busy, or is she just unable to get out of bed?" Cole mocked. "Why are you so anxious to talk to me?" Lucia definitely wouldn't tell him that Dalen had kept her busy all night last night. It was too embarrassing. "Let me tell you, Spencer was too terrifying. Yesterday he was with me," Cole began. "What? Did he do anything to you? He wouldn't." Lucia interrupted Cole anxiously. "Can you let me finish?" Cole asked in despair. "Fine." Lucia rolled her eyes. "He really did stand at my door all the time. Don't you think it's weird?" Cole asked. "Sure." "And then?" With her understanding of Cole, this wasn't the end of the story. "Then I let him come inside and sleep?" Cole whispered. "You shared a bed? Cole, did you let him use my pillow? Now you have to buy me another one. I don't like the smell of other people on my pillow," Lucia whined. "Can you let me finish?" "Yes, please, finish." Lucia lowered her head, her fingers scratching her head. "I let him sleep on the couch in the living room. It would be weird if I let him stand outside while I slept. You would have felt the same in my position," Cole argued. Lucia thought for a moment and said, "I would have felt fine. There's a servant standing guard outside my door almost all the time, and I don't feel too awkward." "It's not the same," Cole muttered. "I feel like it's exactly the same," Lucia shot back. "Maybe for you." Lucia was confused why Cole needed to tell her all this so urgently. Then she had an epiphany, and her breath caught in her throat. "Is that what you're in a hurry to find me for? To ask Dalen about all this?" Lucia asked. "I'm thinking that Spencer won't come back tonight, right? Can you tell Dalen that he must not let Spencer come? I'll only be more afraid if he stays here." Cole was on the verge of tears. "Don't worry about Spencer's character. He's an honorable man," Lucia vowed. "No, I just don't want anyone standing outside the door." "Then let him sleep in the house, just like last night." Lucia felt that this wasn't a problem. "Lucia, are you looking for a beating?" Lucia's loud laughter rang through the room. Cole's face turned dark. "Let me tell you, I already have someone I like. I don't want him to misunderstand. When the time comes, I want to try again with him." "Are you talking about Jeff?" Lucia asked. "Yes." Lucia frowned. What was so good about Jeff? He had a gloomy temperament that made people want to run away from him. But apparently he was Cole's type. This really made Lucia anxious. Later that night at the dinner table, as Lucia was eating, her phone rang. Lucia took out her phone and saw the number on it. Her face stiffened and she pressed the reject button. Then she put the phone back in her pocket. She restrained herself from checking her voicemail and continued to eat. Her head was still lowered, and she wished she could bury it in her bowl. Dalen looked over coldly, and Lucia instantly felt a chill. She lifted her eyes slightly. Dalen's piercing gaze made her heart tremble. Who called? Dalen asked. Lucia weighed Dalen's face and the atmosphere in the room and said hesitantly, It's that guy. He probably wanted to call you on your phone and accidentally called the wrong number. I think it was just a mix-up. Nothing to be concerned about, really, Lucia said hesitantly, as if trying to run away from this interrogation. Who called? Dalen repeated his question, but with a lot more aggression this time. Dalen's eyes turned cold. He asked Lucia, Did you mean Axel? Did you go see him? No, absolutely not. How could I possibly see him? I didn't go and question him, even if he deliberately twisted the matter. Really? Lucia used to love hearing Axel's name, but now, when she heard it, she was panic-stricken. She didn't even dare to say his name in front of Dalen anymore. He used to be Axel, but now he was that guy. She's very pitiful, okay? However, what was even more terrifying was, just as Lucia was trying to convince Dalen to believe her, her phone rang again. She wanted to smash her cell phone. Hand it over, Dalen's voice bellowed. Lucia looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Axel. She quickly threw the phone to Dalen, not wanting to create any more trouble. However, when she saw Dalen answer the call, her eyes immediately widened. What was he doing? Why did he answer it? Dalen seemed to sense Lucia's surprise and looked over with a sharp gaze. Lucia curled her knees up into her chest. Lucia, you didn't answer my phone just now. Are you still mad at me? I'm sorry about what happened. I shouldn't have done that. Actually, what I did was to make you happy. I just wanted to test the extent to which Dalen cares about you. Of course, I had my own selfish thoughts. If he doesn't want you, I won't give you up. That's what I mean, too. But now, the selfishness that I have doesn't need to exist anymore. The truth is that Dalen really cares about you. So I don't think you or I will have any regrets. Axel finished what he was thinking in one breath. Dalen's expression was cold, and his eyes were gloomy. I've already heard enough. You don't need to call her anymore. After Dalen finished speaking, he hung up the phone and dropped it on the table. Lucia glanced at her phone, but didn't take the initiative to ask for it. She silently ate her meal. After Dalen hung up, Axel stood on the lawn and looked into the distance. His face was so calm that it was hard to tell what he was thinking. Sensing that someone was approaching from behind, he turned. Victoria walked up and asked, Axel, are you calling Lucia? It's not good for you to eavesdrop on my phone calls like this, Axel said. However, his tone was not heavy, just a little blaming. I didn't hear all of it. Is that even considered eavesdropping? Victoria said with a smile. And then she asked, How are Lucia and Dalen doing now? Still in a fight? Think about it. What kind of man would forgive his wife for doing something like that? Even if it's an accident. What if the two of them are back together? Axel asked. What? Impossible. How could Dalen be willing to be with her? If you don't believe me, you can go and ask for confirmation. When Axel said that, Victoria knew he had given her a real answer. But how could Victoria accept this? She couldn't believe it. This wasn't like Dalen. How could he tolerate Lucia's betrayal? Is there a misunderstanding somewhere? Didn't Lucia have a physical relationship with you? And Dalen clearly knew. Why would he accept Lucia? Doesn't that make her an adulterer? Victoria said excitedly. Is what you said true? Robert exclaimed in shock. Axel and Victoria were both stunned as they turned around and saw Robert walking toward them. Axel immediately said, "Nothing. I might have grown old, but my ears function just fine. Tell me, what is going on?" Robert asked Victoria. Victoria looked at Axel and felt that it was impossible to hide the truth. After a slight pause, she said, "Axel was kidnapped by Dalen because after the party in the villa, Lucia was found in a compromising situation with Axel." Robert's face changed as he asked Axel, "Is this true?" "You don't need to ask about this. It's over," Axel said. "What do you mean, over? This is serious. Lucia is really shameless. She did something that betrayed Dalen, and she still has the nerve to stay in the Patrick family," Robert said with an ugly expression. "I think so too. Do you know the worst part, Robert? Dalen actually accepted Lucia back. I can't believe it," Victoria said. Robert's face was filled with anger as he turned around and left. "Why did you tell him?" Axel asked, groaning. "Shouldn't you have told him? How could the family keep a woman like Lucia? If others were to find out, what would they think of you?" Axel didn't say anything. He turned around and looked into the distance. His eyes were no longer calm. After Lucia finished her meal, she stepped out for a walk by the garden. Just as she walked out of the door, she heard two maids whispering to each other. "Even Mr. Patrick is willing to accept what has happened between the young mistress and Axel. Don't you think that's romantic?" "Yes, this shows that he truly loves the young madam. Love is more powerful than anything." "That's right. If the young madam hasn't yet fallen in love, she will by now." As she was talking, the maid noticed a person standing behind her. Her face immediately turned pale. Then her legs went limp and she kneeled on the ground. "Scram," a low and cold voice said. Lucia was shocked. She turned around and saw Dalen, who was standing behind her, looking at the servant with a dark expression. The servant was scared and immediately left. After the servant had left, Lucia took a step forward and smiled at Dalen, asking, "Did you hear what they just said? Everyone thinks you can stand being betrayed by your wife. Dalen, what do you think?" "You are very arrogant," Dalen said with evil eyes. Lucia immediately hopped a few steps away from him, looking at him warily. Thinking about how everyone thought that his wife had betrayed him and was gossiping about it, Dalen couldn't help but hold back his laughter. He stretched out his arms and pulled Lucia into his chest. Lucia was startled and pouted her lips in protest. "Who let you be so beautiful?" Dalen squinted at her with his deep eyes. Lucia immediately understood what he meant, and she hit him on the shoulder with her fist. "I'm not talking about that. However, if you don't like it, I can fix that." Lucia's eyes turned red and her mouth agape. Across town, Robert knocked on Linda's door. "Linda, I'm sorry. There is something that requires your immediate attention, but I don't even know how to tell you about it." Robert started to fake cry before he even entered the house. Linda, who was sitting on the sofa and drinking her tea, frowned as she looked at Robert, who had just come in, and asked, "What's going on with you? Why are you in such a rush?" "I know I'm losing my composure, but my heart is in pain. How could such a thing happen to our family?" Robert sat down on the sofa and felt another pang of pain. Linda was stunned for a moment. "What happened to the family?" "Ugly family. Ugly family. I can't even say it out loud." Robert lowered his head in disbelief. "Why did you come here if you're not going to tell me?" Linda said, losing her patience. What happened to the family that made Robert come here to talk about it? Other than her son, she didn't care about anyone else. "It's like this. Earlier, Axel was kidnapped by Dalen. I couldn't figure out what was going on, but today I found out that Lucia had betrayed Dalen and that something had happened between her and Axel. I'm sorry, Lucia. I'm sorry, Dalen. Robert immediately reported. What happened? Linda still didn't understand, or she didn't want to. It's Lucia and Axel. Last month, Robert explained all that had happened in the last few weeks. What did you say? Linda stood up abruptly, her face ashen. Even the teacup in her hand had been knocked over. Bang! It crashed to the ground. Linda, don't be agitated. Robert comforted her. Robert, you're already quite clueless. There are some things that you shouldn't say without evidence. If this really happened, how could Dalen still be with her? Linda thought about going to the mansion a few days ago. Dalen said he was going to have a baby with Lucia, and everything seemed fine. How could it be as terrible as Robert said? I can't believe it either. I only found out later when I asked for confirmation, and it was absolutely true. That's why Axel had been kidnapped by Dalen. If you don't believe me, you can go investigate yourself. Linda looked at Robert with an ashen face, unable to say a word. If what Robert said was a lie, then she couldn't afford to investigate. But he swore. You just have to find a servant in the mansion and ask them in private, and then you will know for sure, Robert said. Linda slumped onto the sofa. The servant standing behind her immediately supported her. Madame, please take care of yourself. What a family shame. Linda was furious. Yes, I didn't teach my son well enough, apparently. So I came to confess to you as soon as I learned of it. Please calm down. It's my fault, Robert said. Linda even turned her head to look at him. Did you come all the way here just to make me angry? Linda, how could I? Go. I'm tired. Linda didn't want to talk to him. Then I'll go. Please take care of your health. Robert stood up and left. Linda supported her head with her hands, feeling a headache coming on. She was about to convince herself to accept Lucia. After all, her son loved her, and she couldn't stop him from doing so. But what was this? Dalen didn't say anything about this situation and treated Lucia so nicely. How could she accept an adulterer as her daughter-in-law? Go call Dalen, Linda said to a servant. Yes, ma'am. Just as she was about to go, Linda called her back. Actually, forget it. Dalen was intentionally hiding this from her. If she were to ask him directly, he would definitely not admit it. Linda was extremely disappointed with Lucia. If not for her, would Dalen have suffered such humiliation? The more Linda thought about it, the more upset she felt. That day at work, Lucia wanted to find a sense of leadership in the company, so she insisted on calling a meeting. The meeting started and lasted 2 hours. Her body was buzzing with pain after sitting for only half an hour. Lucia's face became pale. Cole leaned forward quietly and asked, Should we adjourn the meeting? No need. Lucia held on to her head. Mark looked at Lucia, who was practically sitting sideways in her seat, and didn't say anything. After the meeting ended, everyone left the meeting room. Ugh, my back. Lucia immediately stood up and rubbed her neck with her hands. Cole returned to the meeting room. Lucia? Lucia was so frightened and spun around. She breathed a sigh of relief when she realized it was just Cole. What are you doing scaring me like that? Are you sick? What are you still doing here? Cole asked. Who cares?
Lucia was annoyed. Seeing how Cole was holding back his laughter, she couldn't hold her anger in anymore. If you want to laugh, then laugh. Don't hold it in too much. No, it's not funny. I'm sorry. But why are you torturing yourself like this? No one asked you to come to the conference room. Cole held back his laughter. As the leader of the company, how could I not come? Lucia asked. After some thought, she asked, Is it time to eat? Cole smiled. Of course, Lucia came to the company just to wait for lunch. I have to organize the minutes, Cole said. How long will it take? 10 minutes. All right, I'll wait for you downstairs. She had to get out of the stiflingly hot room. Lucia wandered downstairs and stood by the roadside outside the office to look at the shops. She thought about what she would eat at lunch.